Hi guys. Hello, hello, hello. Hello. Welcome. I've never actually done an IG live, so this feels really weird talking to you. I know you guys can hear me, but I can't hear your responses, so it's kind of like talking to a wall. It's kind of interesting. Hello, hello. Welcome everyone. Got my crystals laid out. Just so you guys know, there's a comments button, yes, but to the right of it are questions. Is a question mark symbol. So if you want to ask questions, just drop it in there. Welcome, welcome. Let more people tune in here. So grateful for you all to join us. Please, by all means, as we start to get the conversation going, please drop in questions. I'm so curious what you guys have to ask and to talk about, and I would love to address them all. You watched a video that I was in. Amazing. I hope you enjoyed it. Hello, beautiful. Hello, Courtney. Hi. Thank you for joining. Hi, guys. Hi. Arzu. Thank you. All right, let's get Lorie on board. Filters, woohoo! Hi guys. All right, let's see where Lorie's at. Hi Brenda, thank you for tuning in. Hi Dakota. Hi guys. Let's see, is she on here? There she is. Lorie!
Yay!
Let me adjust here. I think I'm still down low.
Hold on.
Hi!
Hello!
Welcome! It's so nice to virtually meet you.
I am laughing at myself with my sunglasses on, but such is the case. It's great to meet you.
You as well. You as well. Everyone's tuning in here. Hello, guys. Lots of familiar faces. I'm sure a lot of your followers are coming. Guys, I'm so excited. I'm Arielle, as some of you know, and this is Lorie. Lorie, where in the world are you actually tuning in from?
I'm in Mill Valley,
okay,
California.
So
yeah.
Very nice. Guys,
yeah.
So for those that don't know Lorie, Lorie is, first of all, an amazing gift to the world. And I just want to say, you guys, I have notes and crystals surrounding me right now. So if you see me looking down, that's merely because I want to make sure I get all my notes and questions and bullet points that you guys have been sending in. So ignore that I'm looking down. But Lorie is an ascension guide and an intuitive channel for multi-dimensional light beings. What? Maybe can you just spend a few minutes talking about you, how you got started, what exactly does an intuitive channel even mean? What do you do?
Yeah. I actually got started doing the actual work of sort of channeling and connecting humans to their light families about 4 years ago. But when I was 13, I knew that I was here to work on the ascension journey, work with the ascension process. And I love this story that I always tell, which is I always thought back then, it was 1989, that I would be, the world was going to kind of come to an end physically, and that the humans were going to need assistance to sort of lift off the planet. And there were going to be all these galactic ships. And I was just going to be like, here, you're going to go on this ship and you're going to go on this ship. And of course, now we know we're doing this ascension. We're doing this shift in consciousness physically standing here. We're not going anywhere. We got to go through the nitty gritty dark crap. But we have these galactic light beings and angelic beings and all these other higher dimensional beings right here beside us. So it's a matter of connecting and sort of stepping up into their craft or wherever it may be in a multidimensional way, as opposed to a very physical third dimensional way. And so that's what I do. I connect to these beings. I don't know how I do it. I just have sort of, as soon as I started working and opening myself up, it just happened. I can connect to any sort of galactic or high frequency beings. And I can receive their messages and share their messages. And it's why I'm here, you know, to really remind the human of that they're not just human and that they're from somewhere else and they're a higher consciousness and they're remembering, and there's no mistake that we're here doing this. And we are deeply, deeply guided and held and loved as we do this. And we're very human, right? So,
okay.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of really newbies on this call, as well as some spiritual leaders. So
Okay.
can we go back down a few steps to kind of the basics to those who have probably never even heard frequency, energy, vibes, or just now becoming tuned into that world? So can we talk about just literally frequencies or vibes at the moment? When you say frequencies or elevating, what does that mean to you?
Okay, perfect. Great question. I always forget. I just forget, you know. Let's bring it down to the basics. Okay, so we are energy. There's energy that's all around our bodies, moving in and out of our bodies, and everything externally is energy, right? Energy spins, and when energy spins, if it slows down, it's going to spin. It's going to turn into a slower frequency. A frequency is the spinning of energy. Okay. And so when you're in a third dimension, everyone talks about third dimension. A third dimension is really just the way energy is spinning or experiencing itself. So there's matter, there's density. A tree is actually an energetic being, right? We are energetic beings, but our bodies, the physical trees, the animals, everything that you see is holding energy that is spinning in a very low frequency. So it's experiencing a third dimensional frequency, third dimensional consciousness. When energy starts to increase its speed or speed up, we increase our vibe. We have a high vibe, right? We're increasing the frequency. What's happening is you're beginning to hold more light in the body, and the light that's in the body is starting to speed up. It's starting to spin faster. It's not something that you actually notice or can see. Sometimes you can, but normally you don't see this. You can feel it. But when the energy inside your body and externally, which is what we're watching right now, when it starts to speed up, we start to shift into a little bit of a higher frequency, which is just the spinning of energy. And when you move into a higher frequency, you experience it, different consciousnesses, which is energy, that are in those higher frequencies. So there's a spectrum of consciousness, there's a spectrum of energy, and energy moves along that spectrum. And depending upon how it is spinning, it's going to dictate where it lies along that spectrum, which is going to dictate the consciousnesses that it's going to experience. So if you're holding lower frequencies, you're going to be in a little bit of a lower spectrum of consciousness, and your experiences in those consciousnesses are going to be different than if you're holding a little bit of a higher frequency. You're in a little bit of a higher spectrum of consciousness, and you're going to be experiencing, responding, reacting a little bit differently based on that frequency that you're holding. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay, so I have two questions. Okay, so you just threw out 3D. So we're currently residing at 3D, and then we're elevating to 5D. So how do we get there? But two people are asking what happened to 4D.
Great question. Right. So third dimension is a field. I want you to imagine like a cloud, right? And the third dimension is a cloud. And in that cloud, energy, which is frequency, consciousness, energy is going to spin, let's just say from 3.0 to 3.9. It's not really like that, but this is how we can understand it. So in a third dimension, you're going to, if you're standing in it, your frequency will be between a 3.0 and a 3.9, and you're going to be experiencing all different types of consciousnesses that reside within that spectrum. Okay. As you start to increase the frequency in your body by more light coming in, which is what's always happening, you start to move into that fourth dimensional field, right? And it's a 4.0 to a 4.9 spectrum. The fourth dimension is like a bridge. It's a combination of the third dimension, which is, I'm going to throw out more terms, right? Duality, polarity, right, wrong, good, bad, positive, negative, feels good, doesn't feel good, right? That's the third dimension. And then it's going to hold aspects of the fifth dimension, which is equality, unity, oneness, present moment, expansion, abundance, that kind of stuff. So what happens when you start moving into the fourth dimension, it's not a place we stay at. That's not the destination. It's a station that we're kind of moving through. And while we're there, we're practicing. It's like a practice zone of like, what is 5D consciousness? How do I experience it? How do I practice it? How do I hold it while I'm still experiencing 3D consciousness, right? Because you're not necessarily exiting out of 3D consciousness when you're in 4D consciousness, because 4D consciousness holds a lot of the 3D consciousness sort of experiences still. So it's like it's like an oscillation, right? You're not stagnant. Like I'm in 3D, only 3D. I'm in 4D, only 4D. I'm in 5D. It's always this oscillation back and forth. And the 4D is really where we are. Most of us are actually residing, and most of us are in the practice zone. So your body's holding 5D consciousness. Your body's holding 3D consciousness. Your body's holding 4D consciousness. It's holding all these different consciousnesses, and you're going like this. And every now you're like, I'm feeling 5D today. I'm feeling 3D today. I'm feeling kind of neutral today, right? That's just you becoming aware of all the different frequencies that are stirring around in your body as we practice and learn how to anchor completely into the 5D, which takes a very long time. But what's happening internally is also happening externally, right? Which is what we're seeing right now. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Okay, so how do we get to 5D? And what if we don't want to? Or what if we don't practice these things? What does that mean for others?
So we have free will, and it's all about what you are conscious of and what you're aware of. And so you get to choose in every now moment how you want to be. And the more you kind of wake up, right, all of a sudden you're seeing things differently, you're understanding things differently, you're recognizing, holy shit, look at how I am. Oh my God, look at what I do. Look at what I think. Look at how I feel. Look at how I respond, right? You're becoming aware and observing you. And when you start doing that, you start to choose how you're going to be, how you're going to respond. And what happens is you start to go into the body. So you become embodied. And when you start going into your body, which most of us have been programmed not to, because we feel too much when we're in our bodies. But when you start to go into your body, unbeknownst to you, very unconsciously, you start recognizing different frequencies. You start recognizing, wait a second, things are shifting for me. People, I'm not resonating with them anymore. Wait a second, I don't want that anymore, right? So it's a very sly kind of way of shifting when you're not like consciously saying, I'm going to shift into 5D. Like it doesn't happen that way. It's more of like you start to become aware of you start to get into your body, you start to feel, and then you start to observe how things are shifting and changing in your world. And you start to realize you're being a little bit different. And then you're being a little bit different, more and more and more starts to change. And then you slowly just find yourself moving into these higher states of consciousness while you're still standing in the lower fields, right? And there's many that don't want to. I mean, listen, when you wake up, you're like, oh shit, I'm awake. The seatbelt's on and you don't have a choice, right? It's like you are now aware of you, and you are now becoming a consciously ascending human, which is basically like, okay, what do I think? What do I feel? What do I want? How do I create all of these things? And even though there is always light flooding down on the earth plane and in the human, if you're not conscious of it, nothing's going to happen, right? So there's millions of humans that are very numb to all of this. Millions, probably billions, you know, to be completely honest, that are looking at us like, what do you mean ascension? There's no such thing. And that's why it's so courageous that we are waking up and doing this, because we're actually shifting the large collective. These people that are, these humans that are choosing either consciously or unconsciously to not wake up, they will eventually start to kind of peel their eyes open. You know, many of them will. It's just a matter of, will they do it in their lifetime or not? And there isn't a right, wrong, good, bad. We're still shifting. We're still ascending. We're still moving into these higher states. And there's more and more that are waking up, but there's millions that just won't do it in this lifetime, and that's okay.
Okay, so this can go in so many different avenues. So I'm going to go back to a video you talked about recently, talking about levels of truth.
Yes.
And how there's many different levels of truth. So first of all, can you dive into that? And then for those that are holding a higher level of truth, because you pointed out that there were a time when myself, you, and others weren't awake. And other healers were holding a high frequency and pulling that energy, pulling us up, right? So now that's kind of what we're going through, is we're seeing a lot of light healers, star seeds, warriors, right? Holding a high frequency while others are navigating these levels of truth. What does that mean? Can you expand on that?
Yeah. So okay. So let's first talk about the third dimensional field holds duality. It's just, it's a natural part of this dimension, which means that you're going to stand in truth or not truth, fact, fiction, right, wrong, good, bad, right? We're going to have that. Okay. There are going to be truths that or paradigms that will be able to hold a neutral perspective, which means that it's all just is. It just is. It just is what it is, right? It's okay. And there's going to be paradigms and behaviors and things like that where we are going to have an absolute not good, not okay, not right, right? So we have to understand that first, that there is duality. That's part of it. Once you recognize that, then you go up a level and you say, okay, now can I observe that? Can I observe that there's duality? Can I observe that in this field of consciousness, that just is? There is going to be a right and wrong for many humans. Okay, great. Yes, I can observe that. I'm choosing a right and a wrong, right? Then you go up another level and you say, okay, truth is truth for the individual that's holding that truth, right? And that just is. And you can't negate that. You can't debate that unless you want to. It's a waste of energy. You can't, it's part of this consciousness. It's part of this field, right? The more you start to observe that, oh, that's their truth. That's theirs. It's not mine. It's theirs. When you observe it, you start to recognize where each human is in their consciousness, right? What they're capable of seeing or not seeing. And then you start to hold the higher perspective. And as you start to hold the higher perspective, which is, oh, we're in a dualistic space, right? There's right, wrong. People are holding their truths. I don't hold that truth. Or I'm holding a neutral perspective, which is, it just is. It all just is. It's okay. That's their truth. That's their truth. That's their truth, right? And because if you think about when you were asleep and not awake, we were like firm in our like this is my truth and this is the right way. And there were other people, right, that were teachers of holding higher frequencies that were just honoring that. Okay. They didn't argue.
Right.
They didn't say, yes, you're right. Yes, you're wrong. They were like, yeah, that's cute. You're being human, you know? Yeah. So it's all about observing. It's all about recognizing the field of consciousness we're in. It's all about realizing that truth is truth for everyone that's holding that truth. And we are doing an injustice by trying to pull somebody else into our truth and honoring how challenging that is. It is not easy. That is not an easy feat at all, to allow or to be okay with everyone's truths. That's a very hard thing to do for humans. Because why? We live in duality. There's right and wrong, right? And so the more you observe that, the more you step out of that, the more you honor it, the more you're able to start to honor every human's truth, every human's experience, and you start to navigate what you can and cannot hold, right? Like, there are injustices that I am not quite able to say, I can hold that. I can love that. I can accept that. I can hold that. There are other injustices that I can hold, and I can say, you know what? I see that as them just doing their human journey, and I can hold that from a neutral perspective. But the key is, where are you in your spectrum of being able to hold neutrality, which is, it all just is, right? That's their truth. That's their truth. And I'm observing it. And what we want to practice is, where am I? What can I hold? What can't I hold? And not beating ourselves up over it, because we're all going to have opinions until we are an enlightened being. You know, we're going to have our opinions, and that's part of human. So it's really about recognizing, oh, you know what? These injustices I see as third dimensional consciousness that's very dark, that's going to be clearing. It's the human doing the human journey, and I'm going to observe it neutrally. These other ones, I can't yet. Yeah. I can't, right? And you just see where you are along that spectrum, constantly observing.
Yeah. So what does that look like? Does that mean spending more time in meditation? Does that mean when you find yourself in what could seem like abrasive arguments, because you have a lot of people that are feeling a divide amongst people who were once friends, that believe that some should be like protesting on the street or some should be inside with a mask. Everyone's becoming really opinionated right now. So what does that even look like?
Yeah, so there's massive polarity clearing, right? Mm-hmm. So when you shift the collective, this is not easy what we're doing, okay? Like, shifting a huge human collective into a higher state of consciousness is not easy, and it's real messy, and it gets real dirty, and we got to get our hands in there, right? So when you're what we're going to continue to watch is polarities, the splitting of polarities. This is right and this is wrong. You're going to see the splitting of duality. This is good, this is bad. And so what we want to do, one of the things that came in, the message today that came in really strongly, which is it possible to navigate this however you need to, whether you protest, whether you meditate, whether you watch Netflix, whether you drink, whether you go and scream, and is it possible for us to navigate this, allowing every human to navigate it the way they need to navigate it? Is it possible to not make somebody right or wrong in how they're navigating it? Because just the simple fact of seeing the massive, horrific injustices is heartbreaking enough for all of us, okay? And, by the way, many humans that aren't broken, right? That's a reality. There are many humans that are like, makes no difference to me, right? So is there a way to go navigate this where we are holding higher states of consciousness, which is, I'm going to allow every human to just navigate this the best they can. That's being in a higher state of consciousness while I'm still standing in a third dimensional duality and polarity field where there's a right and a wrong. It's like, how the hell do you do that? But that's what we're practicing. So if you need to meditate, go meditate. If you need to protest, go protest. If you need to scream and tell all of these people they're wrong, go and do that. My job is to hold my sovereign field, observe how everybody is reacting and responding, and just honor it. It's not mine, it's theirs. This is how they're doing it, right? We have to practice this, though. This is not natural, right? This is being in 5D consciousness. This is learning how to while we're still standing in 3D, and we're clearing massive, horrific density.
Right. So you threw out the phrase unity consciousness. That's what we're moving to, as opposed to a polarity. Can you expound on that for a few minutes?
Yeah, so
unity consciousness.
Unity consciousness is kind of like one of those things where it's like, you know, one day it's almost impossible to really understand, because what unity consciousness means is that you're able to see every human equal, right? And unity consciousness is almost impossible in a third dimension, because there are rapists, there are murderers, there are torturers, there are abusers, there are people doing the most horrific things possible. And in unity consciousness, you have to be able to look at that human and see them as an equal, with love, with unconditional love and acceptance. For most humans, that's almost impossible, right? Because we're in a third dimensional reality where there's duality, right? But we are moving to unity consciousness, which is held in a much higher frequency. So we are practicing it, which means, okay, can I start to observe that everyone did come from the same source, which is all great and dandy until you're standing in front of somebody that's doing something horrific and you're like, I don't give a crap where that person's from. I don't care that they're from freaking source consciousness. They just abused a dog. I'm going to beat the crap out of them, right? How do I hold unity for that, right? So we have to be real and grounded in terms of unity consciousness. So in terms of understanding it, it means that we are all one, which we are. It means that we all came from source consciousness or God or wherever. It means that we are all equal and we all deserve unconditional love, and we're all choosing our own path, blah, blah, blah. And there will be a time where that will be our experience. In the meantime, how much of that can I practice? Mm-hmm. How much of that can I practice? Because what you'll notice is if you observe yourself, am I being dualistic and in polarity and in separation, or am I trying to hold a little bit more unity, which would be unconditional love, empathy, and compassion and love? You'll start to notice where you are along that spectrum, right? You'll start to see, oh, I can hold a little bit more. But, you know, we're a long ways from it.
You talked about portals of light, and many are throwing around, we're being recalibrated right now. What does that mean to you?
Portals of light.
Yeah. People talking about the recalibration. So many are feeling ascension symptoms.
Okay, yeah. So there are moments or time, I guess I'll just use time. There are days where the earth plane is receiving higher frequencies of light. So we're always receiving light, and it's light that is coming from the sun, and it's not sunlight. It's a much higher frequency. It's always coming down on us, and it's what's allowing us to shift consciousness. It's allowing us to, it's activating our DNA, which is our light codes. So there are portals or moments where there's much higher frequencies of light coming down. So not only is more light coming down, like you've turned a faucet on the shower and it's on full blast, but it's like the light is much faster. It's spinning the frequency is much faster. So there's more of it and it's spinning faster. And so when it moves into your body, it rattles the heck out of the denser consciousness. And that's where you get the ascension symptoms or the activations or the timeline jumps, right? Where you're jumping into a different timeline all of a sudden. What's happening is your body is starting to experience higher frequencies it's shuffling around the denser consciousness. A denser consciousness is experiences that you've had in your past that have created thoughts, beliefs, behaviors, emotions, traumas, relationships, contracts, all of that stuff that's stored in the body because we didn't want to experience it when it first was digested. So it's stored in there. It's denser, which is why we didn't want to experience it. And so when the high frequency light comes in, it rattles it, right? So there's these portals that happen, that open, and all this light floods in much faster. And all of a sudden we're like, what the hell's going on today, right? We either feel exhausted, we feel lightheaded, dizzy, we may feel massive buzzing, we may feel really depressed, really angry. We may come out of a portal and all of a sudden we're like, I don't want to be in a relationship anymore. You're like, you know, like just like that, your whole life is shifted, right? So these portals are happening more and more frequently, and we're becoming aware of them. Why? Because we're in our bodies. We're feeling it now. We're like, oh my God, I think I'm in a portal of light right now. So it shifts us. It turns on our light codes. It reminds us of who we are. There's all these little moments of remembrance of like, oh, wait a second, like aha moments, you know, and massive shifting of your entire life. Your entire life will start to get turned upside down for a lot of us. And that is where the ascension journey becomes real, you know, and it's courageous.
So what are some tangible things that we can be doing right now to assist with the way we're feeling with everything that's happening in the world? Is that more sleep? Is that drinking juice? Is that meditating more?
I mean, there's anything and everything. It really depends on what you need. I mean, more than anything, more than sleep or Netflix or juice or nature, it's compassion for yourself. Mm-hmm. That is, I mean, every time I sit with my guides, I mean, they shower me with compassion and love, and there's this honoring of being in the human body right now, right? Like, how much compassion can you have for yourself no matter what you're experiencing? How much compassion can you have for yourself? How much love can you have for yourself no matter what you're going through, no matter how badly you don't want to be experiencing what you're experiencing? Can you find compassion? And then can you find compassion for others? And that's the biggest piece. How you navigate this is about really honoring your resonance, your what do you need? Not what somebody else tells you, not what a teacher tells you, right? Like, oh, I heard I'm supposed to meditate by a tree every day. Well, if that doesn't feel right, it's not going to assist you, right? Maybe it's binge watching Netflix for 6 hours, you know? You want to be able to, you got to give yourself permission to do it your way, no matter how anyone else is doing it. And because we've never done this before, we don't know what the heck we're doing. Right. And it's getting really intense out there, right? And it's only going to get more intense because we're continuing to clear the dark. So we have to learn how to navigate this with even more compassion, even more empathy, even more love. So whatever you need, give it to yourself, like whatever it is. Because you're here for this. You're in your human form to do this, whether you understand it right now or not.
Yeah. You still signed up for this.
Yeah. You signed up for it, and you're going to navigate it your unique way. You may be a banker. You may be a mom with 7 children, married to a firefighter. You may be a nurse. You may be, doing Reiki. I don't know what you're doing, right? It doesn't matter. But if you're awake and you're remembering and you're saying, wait a second, there's something bigger happening, then you just navigate it the best you can. And every single now moment, we are always, no matter what you think, we are always continuing to shift just a little bit. Even in the anger, even in the protest, even in the rage, that stuff has to happen. It has to come up, and we have to honor it. Honor however anyone needs to express whatever they're expressing, right? The Galactic Federation of Light said today, which is my guides, they said, listen, You're shifting the collective just by allowing yourself to see the density, see the dark. You know, that's it. Just by seeing it, it's shifting it. You know?
Can we talk about self-love for a minute? So how would you recommend someone start to love themselves?
Oh my Lord.
Right? What are some of the tools in your toolbox that you would recommend?
Well, I got to be honest. Self-love was something that it's almost like I fought my whole life against self-love. Like,
same.
The last thing I wanted to do was spend any time loving myself, learning how to love myself. I mean, it just seemed like a lot of work, and I just didn't ever want to do it. And it wasn't until I started doing my work about 4 years ago that I was forced to, literally, I was forced to start to love myself. And it is a delicate process in my experience. It is the thing that worked for me the best was learning how to love myself in the moments that I couldn't stand myself. That's where it really started to work. When I was doing behaviors, when I was treating people certain ways, when I was feeling certain ways, it was the moments when I was least lovable that I started practicing loving myself in those moments, because it's easy for me to sort of love myself when I feel really good about myself.
Right.
But it was in the moments where I was in the behaviors, in the addictions, in the whatever it was that I couldn't stand about myself, that I started to observe. So here's what I would start to do. I would start to step out of me. I would start to step out of the behavior or the thought or the emotion. And I would start to observe Lorie. Oh, there's Lorie yelling. There's Lorie, binge eating. There's Lorie sleeping for 7 hours. There's Lorie hating her body. There's Lorie excessively exercising. There's Lorie doing all these things, right? I would observe. First step. Because when you're in it, it's really hard to love yourself when you're in it, because you're in that behavior of not loving yourself, right? So you got to step out. And for me, observing was key. Observing. And then from that observer perspective, I could have compassion for myself. I could start to say, I love you, even if you're doing that. I love you, even as you're saying that to yourself. I love you, almost like I'm a baby or a teddy bear or a newborn dog, right? I had to get out of me. I had to get out of the way. And then in terms of like everyday things, I just observe what I say to myself. I observe when I don't love myself. And in those moments, I try to love myself. And what does that mean? Like, how do you explain even what that means?
Yeah. I know one thing. Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
I would say one thing that helped me on my journey was sitting and visualizing baby Arielle, or as and then talking to her and being willing to say, like, Arielle, I'm sorry that I neglected you, and I'm sorry that I haven't listened to you, but now I see you. Now I want to try to love you. I want to listen to you, and I'm here. And I know for myself, I had issues with not feeling chosen. So one thing that I went and sat down in my meditation and tried to go back to my earliest memory and just be like, Arielle, I know whatever happened on the dodgeball field happened, but I choose you now. And just kind of worked my way up, but being able to talk to an inner child and being like, because sometimes we, like, there was a moment for myself where I felt really ugly and I despised myself and I hated mirrors, and that was a journey. And so people would say, well, practice and love yourself. And I couldn't look at her, but visualizing toddler Arielle was a lot easier. So I was able to start there and then kind of work it up.
That's a good example, because when I started really healing, I had an eating disorder for a really long time. And the eating disorder thoughts were really started coming up during quarantine, which was like, oh, Lorie, look what you still have inside of you. And so what I did was very similar to what you said. I sat with myself in meditation and lit candles and had a journal. And I said, okay, let's go back to the first moment that you remember feeling these things, right? And then can you love yourself there? Right. Can you start there? And then I did exactly what you did. I started going through my life and seeing all the moments that I hated myself, or that I beat myself up, or that, you know, it was all about my body image and blah. And I just went through it. You know, it took me a couple hours. And it brought a lot of clarity to why I didn't love myself. And when you have that clarity, it makes it a little bit easier to really start to love yourself again. And it's a daily freaking practice. Yeah. Oh, you know?
I always say, you know, yesterday's deodorant doesn't work for today. So you can choose and put it on again. And it's the same for our mental state. It's like I get up every day, and what's important to me is my meditations and my crystals and setting the tone for my day. It's an active choice instead of just allowing billboards and social media and TV to come at me and dictate how I'm going to feel. It's literally a choice, you know? I'm going to pivot this conversation just for a little bit and talk about our star family. Right? And many people are wondering, do I have a star family? How do I talk to them? How do I communicate with them? So can we talk about that for a few minutes?
Yeah. So first, like, what's a star family? So many of us, a star family is also, like, I like to call them a family of light. And not all of us have families of light. Some of us are from the angelic. So we came from somewhere else. Let's start there, right? Yes. We dropped into the human body from a higher consciousness. We were something else, and then we were something else before that, and we were multiple things, and we're not going to get into the details of that. But you dropped into human form from a different consciousness, right? Some of us call it the Palladians, the Sirians, the Octurians. Maybe it's a hybrid. Maybe it's the angelic realm, right? And so we call that the consciousness we came from, our family of light, our star family, right? If you're from the angelic realm, then it's the angelic realm. But they're with us. It's designed that way. We're designed to be connected to them. And as we awaken, moving into these higher states, we're like, holy shit, wait a second, I'm from somewhere else. And who are they? And what do they have to share with me? And right now, more than any other time in the history of human history, we have access to them like we never have. But it's in a different dimension. So it's not physical. You can't physically see them all the time. You can't physically hear them, right? So you have to use these other senses. And the best way that I recommend connecting with them again, first of all, you have to acknowledge that they're around you. That's step one. If you don't acknowledge that they're there, if you're doubting, then it's going to be challenging to acknowledge that they're with you, right? So you first have to acknowledge that they're with you, and you have to understand they're light. They're high frequency light. They're not necessarily a physical body that's going to stand there. And so you have to start to invite them into your space. You just talk to them throughout the day. You just invite them in. I'm inviting you in. I'm inviting you in. Even if you don't know who they are, right? It doesn't need, you don't need to worry about the names, because they actually don't have names, right? So a lot of times we'll get stuck in the names, like, oh my God, who are they? What are they? Is it the Palladians? Is it the Sirians? Is it the Octurians? Who are they? So you don't want to worry about the name. Let go of knowing the name. That will throw that out the door, because it's going to block you. Just call them in. My family of light, my star family. I'm calling you in. When you're in the shower, when you're driving your car, all day long, calling them in. And then you want to just open up to, do I feel anything? Do I hear anything? Am I experiencing anything? Maybe, maybe not. And the more you do that on a regular basis, the more you're going to start to say, oh, something else is in the room with me right now, right? There's something else happening. Now, there's actual, like, meditative experiences that you can do where you sit, you ground down, you open up your crown, you invite them into your space, and then you start to play with their energies, right? You start to tell them to come closer to you, you can ask them to touch your head, touch your heart center, touch your arm. If you tell them to do these things, they will do them and you will feel it. but you have to practice, right? We have to practice. So there's steps you can do, meditative steps where you close your eyes and you sit down and you open up your crown and you invite them in and you play with their energies. And then you can just do it in every now, just walking around. The key is to always do it. Don't give up, and don't think that you're blocked. Don't say I'm blocked. Don't say I can't, right? Don't do that, because that's your reality then.
Right.
You got to stay open to it, and don't hold this idea of what it's going to look like, right? There's a lot of pictures out there on the internet. Oh, this is what they look like. And that may not be how they look like to you. But if you're holding that idea and that's an expectation, then that's what you're going to want to see. And you may never see that. So you got to let go of any sort of expectation of what they look like, because most of the time with me, they're light. They're light forms. You know, sometimes they'll have faces that are interesting, or they'll have wings, or they'll have colors, or they'll have more of a body. But I have never seen what they show on Google, you know, never. That's never been my experience with them. So it's all about consistency.
And in your experience, wouldn't you say that they're incredibly loving? So those who are feeling fearful can surrender and let that go, because our star family are incredibly loving sources.
Yeah. And if you have fear, right, then you want to just state out loud that you're inviting in the highest benevolent light beings for your highest good. Mm-hmm. And you want to just know that you're always protected in a field of light. If you have fear, right, there's reasons that you have fear from other lifetimes and other experiences. So it's okay. But these beings, all beings that are engaging with us right now, for the most part, are high frequency light beings assisting us. And as long as you hold that in your reality, that's what's coming in. And I have never, ever had a dark being come into my field. Mm-hmm. I have a Patreon group with hundreds of people. They've never come into that field. I've done thousands of client sessions. I've never had a dark being come into that field. It's the reality I hold. So it's okay to have fear, mm-hmm. but you want to know that you're safe. And when you start to feel these beings, you just drop in tears, because the amount of love that you feel with them is just, it's you can't even describe it. It's a miracle. It's such a gift. It doesn't take away from our human journey, right? Right. But it does help us see who we are besides just the human.
So what is the Galactic Federation then?
So the Galactic Federation of Light is a large collective of light beings, hundreds and hundreds of light beings of many different frequencies and dimensions. And they were designed to assist the Earth plane as she navigates her ascension journey. And there are councils within the Galactic Federation of Light. There's hundreds of councils of different light beings within the Galactic Federation of Light. And you can almost imagine them as the Earth's guides. They're her comrades. They're her, confidants. And so there are different councils that many different humans connect into in order to facilitate and assist messages, guidance, for humanity, for the Earth plane, for all of that. They're no better than or less than any other system of light. Like the group that I work with, there's 12 of them. And there's a Palladian, there's a Sirian, there's an Arcturian, there's an Andromeda, there's a Cassiopean. There's a group of them, there's a Lyran. And so there's 12 of them, right? And there's many other councils in the massive, large Galactic Federation of Light. And there's many people that have a lot of different opinions about the Galactic Federation of Light. So really it's about your own experience and how you've experienced them. But they're pretty miraculous beings, and they're watching us and navigating us this whole journey with the Earth. And they have been since the very beginning of her journey, millions of years ago.
I know this is a really long question, Ben, so we'll have a few minutes, but why do you feel that they are so connected to us as humans on Earth?
Because they designed this whole thing. They designed the whole thing. The Galactic Federation of Light designed the human form. They designed the Earth plane. They designed all of it. Yeah. So, you know, they created the universal laws on the Earth plane. They pulled the fourth dimensional races off the Earth. They created the grids that are surrounding and protecting us. They have sort of this ability with the Earth where they don't interfere, but if there is ever a need to interfere, it's the Galactic Federation of Light that will interfere, right? So they started the whole thing with Earth. They created Earth's form. You know, Earth is a higher consciousness. Earth isn't Earth, right? Right. So they created with Earth her form, and they created with Earth the human form, and so on, and the trees and all the different animals and the mermaids and all this stuff. And it's such a huge, massive story. It's what I wrote in my book, right? But yeah, your question is, you already knew the answer to, right? But it's that they designed this whole thing with Earth. And it's crazy to think about, because this is just, this universe and this experience and the stars and the planets and the galaxies, it's just one tiny piece of of anything that ever is, was, and will be. It's in the quantum field. This is just a tiny thing that's occurring right now, which is mind-blowing to try to comprehend, especially if you're just waking up and you're like, what the hell is this girl talking about?
Wait, what? All I heard was ET's created the Earth. What?
Yeah. What? But it's great because a lot of people are starting to remember. Yeah. You know, they're starting to remember. Mm-hmm.
So, okay, so on that note, for those that want to dive into this topic, I know I have a few recommendations, but what recommendations do you have? Obviously your book, but what are some other materials that you recommend?
My book's not out yet, but when my book comes out, the book will be great. Recommendations.
August, September? When did
oh my God, I don't know. I'm still in the editing process. It's still being edited by me, but who knows? We'll see. It's happening. Just whenever it does, it'll be. What are my recommendations? I think it's hard for me to do that because I don't listen or watch a lot of people. Okay. If I were to throw out names that I would recommend right now, I would throw, and this is just my resonance, right? So there could be this may not resonate with you. I think if there is, you know, in terms of the quantum sort of space and understanding all this, I would throw out Feel Good. I would throw out Elizabeth April. I would throw out Matt Kahn, who's just sort of very kind of neutral in it.
Are you familiar with her?
Who is it?
Allison Coe.
Yes. She's great. Who else?
Dolores Cannon. Her book. Convoluted Universe, book 4 is phenomenal.
And her 3 Waves of Volunteers are really great.
Because I'm reading that right now, and I'm.
It's good because it reminds you of like, oh shit, we're not from here. Oh, got it. So Dolores Cannon is an excellent resource. Allison Coe, QHHT. Who else?
Yeah, these are so good. You guys, okay, so I really, really want to be able to save this live, so I have to end it really, really soon. So if you have any quick questions, drop them in there at the bottom as we wrap this up, because this conversation has been so good, Lorie. And
it's been so fun. Oh my God, it's been so fun.
So on that note, do you want to leave anyone with any words of wisdom, thoughts, feelings, emotions?
Yeah, listen, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know if I'm here to make a difference. I don't know if I'm here to wake up. I don't know if I'm here to ascend. You are. Okay. You are. This is a process. This is a journey. Right. Yeah. And it's not easy. You can't sugarcoat it. It's not easy, but it's amazing and it's miraculous. Yeah. And it's energy shifting. And the more you wake up, the more you say yes, the more you take every single courageous baby step, the more you remember, the more you recognize, the more courage you have. And the more compassion you can have for yourself and every other human, the easier this is going to be, right? Stepping outside, becoming the observer, become the observer. It's huge.
Love that. Lorie, thank you, thank you, thank you.
This was so fun.
So much fun. I cannot wait to do it again. To everyone listening in, thank you for joining us, and I will catch you soon.
Bye.
Bye.